Hello, everyone, and welcome to one of our lovely interviews for the fantastic Hamlet performance that we put on. And I have got our wonderful Elsie here with us, who played.
Horatio.
Yay! Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get rolling in?
Sure. My name's Elsie. I live in California. I went to college at UC Berkeley where I met Jen, who is our
Ah,
Hamlet. Um,
Jen.
love her. And we did a show together a long, we did Three Sisters together back then. And so
Oh my
she
gosh.
was the one who tapped my shoulder and was like, "Hey, you should submit for this." And it was just a blast. So, yeah, I'm Elsie. I live in Napa now, and I'm recording from my little closet shed of chaos.
Which I think is the most relatable thing, not just to me, but I'm sure to plenty of people watching. All right. Well, let's get into it. So we had our lovely Horatio, which what a great you did a fantastic job with him. But I'm curious, in the conversation of Shakespeare, do you have a dream Shakespeare character that you would want to play? Is there
Oh,
something that has always just been itching?
yeah. Well, for a long time, that was Horatio. I
Ah,
love Horatio. Like, I mean, I just but check. So that was fantastic. And I would also really love to play Macbeth. I know it's a
oof.
bold ass statement, and initially I was like, Lady Macbeth would be awesome, more traditional, but the one that I'm like chomping at the bit, like someone give me a chance to do it is I mean that tomorrow and tomorrow speech is just something that, I learned in school and
Oof.
it would be a reach, but it would be phenomenal.
I just got chills thinking about that one. Macbeth, that's a phenomenal character to want to take a shot at. It's like Lady Macbeth, we love her. Just a
Yeah, we
little.
love her, but well, and I think it's funny too because I feel like it's a complicated question. Well, it's a simple question, but it's a complicated answer
Mhm.
as like as a female performer because so many of the roles in Shakespeare that are written for women, they weren't written for women. They were written for men
Yep.
playing women. And so there's I want to say there's a lack of just depth in a lot of them, but perhaps there's a lack of breadth within them
Yeah.
in that I just, once you've played that role, you're like, okay, that like it's and now I'm sounding like a jerk. But there's so much more meat on the male parts. Oh God, that's a terrible phrase. I never think about how things are gonna say until I've said them. I apologize for that one. But it's accurate, I feel
It's
like,
yeah.
they're more fleshed out, they're more complicated, there's more of them, there's not like, and then the two girls. Um, so yeah, which is I think one of the reasons why Horatio has always stuck out to me as a part I wanted to play because he has always felt very relatable to me
Yeah.
as he's an academic, he's an outsider, he's a really good friend. You're not really sure of the degree of the relationship between very relatable content for me. Um
Absolutely.
so
Yeah, there's a little bit of that disconnect, I think, that can happen with a man writing a part for a woman, especially back in that time. Like you said, they're writing it for men to perform as women.
Yeah, so
Uh,
there's an inherent comedy in that, like whether
mhm.
they intended it or not, but like that it was, there aren't these, um, there's not a female equivalent to Hamlet.
Yes,
Like there's,
exactly. Exactly.
so, but that, great comedies. There's some great,
Oh, yeah.
comedies, but yeah, so that's my snarky performance studies answer is,
I love
there was
it.
kind of a world that opened up though when we started thinking about, cross casting and just exploring gender roles and like especially in instances where it's like, well, why, what a scholar, a scholar, a soldier,
Mhm.
like those aren't gendered titles.
Yeah,
Um anyhow.
I think that's fantastic. All right, Macbeth,
I'm
hear that? We're putting it out there.
just gonna shoot big, right? Why not? Why not? You asked, I
Hey,
answered.
that's what we are here for. And so you do have experience in more traditional plays, right? More traditional theater and whatnot.
Yes,
Or I say
yeah, I came up.
traditional, but
Well, yeah, like not on a camera in your garage, basically. Yeah, no, I did. I came up through ballet initially. So I trained as a dancer
Oh,
and
wow.
then shifted into theater in high school and college. And then yeah, I've been performing ever since. And so in very different types of venues, right? Like on the
Yeah.
traditional big like proscenium stage, also like in cafes, like I was an exchange student and we did some very interesting site-specific theater
Oh,
in France, just being like,
so
this fountain
fun.
is pretty. What if we did a ballet here? And so, like so it's really run the gamut, but this was a very new experience to me. I had to download Discord. I had no idea what I was doing to to film and to stream, and it was just a really
Yeah.
fun and different avenue to explore when I think because I come from a dance background, I rely
Mhm.
a lot on physicality and playing off of your scene partner, playing off of
Yeah.
the other people in the scene. And we had to come up with a very different way of doing that when you're not sharing the space, right? Like you're where
Yeah.
you are and I'm where I am. But then you have to start thinking about space in a different way because we are sharing the same space, just in a different. So,
Different light.
yeah, I mean, and it's the 2020s, so we've had this kind of new space to meet for a while now. And it's become very familiar. And so, but this was not the first time I had done theater on Zoom as a kind of result of the pandemic. I'd done a few other readings, but this
Yeah.
was the first time I'd done Shakespeare on Zoom. And it was so much fun because when you pull away from that and you really lean into the language, um, which is which is 80% of what it is,
Yeah.
it's a really fun and it's really cool to see people jump into it, especially people who otherwise couldn't. Like I can't just because of my life, there's no way I could commit to a full-time rehearsal, where we're meeting every night in person and da 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 da. Like right now, my kids like playing a video game before boxing lessons while we could do this in my shed. Like that
Yep.
this it as a parent it makes performance a lot more accessible. And so I don't remember what the question was that got me going on this, but yeah, like all the different types of theater and the different types of venues and just like I don't know what that word would be, like modality, like
Yeah. I
um
think you answered that perfectly because basically it was just, your compare like how it compares to your previous experiences with theater. And I think seeing something like Zoom or video performances, being able to open those doors for you.
mhm,
I have other friends and people in my life who, when parenting comes in or different sort of work comes in, they find themselves not being able to have access to something that brings them a lot of joy.
mhm,
So the fact that you're able to have this and able to have this door open, I think is really special.
absolutely.
And uh, so a couple questions about Horatio.
Hmm.
And this one might be a little wild,
Okay.
but
Okay. Give it to me, Kat.
we've got Horatio at the end of the play. He's
Ah,
there. Our boy is
oh,
there.
buddy.
I know. He's there. He's standing on his own. And as someone who put work into this character, I'm curious to know if you have an idea of what the future would hold for Horatio after this moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's bleak at first, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he doesn't want a future. He's trying to like he tries to end himself with the poison, and Hamlet's like, "No, you can't. Like you
Yeah.
have to basically bear witness. You have to be the one to tell people what happened here because everyone else is dead.
They're all
Everyone else
gone.
is dead. They're all dead." Spoiler alert.
Oh,
Hamlet, they all die at the
sorry.
end, except Horatio. Um, so yeah, so I mean, I think Horatio um would continue on as a witness, bearing witness. You know, he was a scholar of you know, rationale, that real big shift away from
Yeah.
superstition into logic and yet he saw these extraordinary things. And so in a lot of ways, Horatio is the audience on stage, right? Because he's the outsider. He
Mm,
doesn't know what's going on. He's seeing everything for the first time. So in a lot of ways, he is the character on stage that kind of represents the audience's experience, right? Like, who are these people? Oh, here we are. Da 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 da. What's going on with the
yeah.
battle? Like, you know, and so at the end, Horatio is kind of implicated in the sense of like you have to leave this world of the play. You have to continue on and tell people what happened here. Um, and man, like what happened there? Like everything, right?
So
We had
much.
murder, we had, you know, a political uprising, we had war with Norway, we had you know, oh yeah, another murder. Like I killed my brother so that I could marry his
Yep.
wife and take over his kingdom. Like, oh, there were a few things that happened. Um, and yet that whole history, had Horatio escaped, never would have continued, right? Like
Hmm.
that whole drama in that bubble would have just popped. And because Horatio survives, that tale can be told, that history survives. And so I do think that he goes on to do that. I definitely see him as like some I don't want to say vagrant, that sounds wrong, but as kind of a like a visionary, like a not like a preacher, but kind of like
In a
going around,
sense.
like kind of continuing the tale, like kind of like cheesy, but like you know, at the end of Hamlet, like the or Hamilton, the like who lives, who dies, who tells
Ah.
your story. Like Horatio tells Hamlet's story. Without Horatio, we have no flipping clue what happened in Denmark. And so I think that's and there were pirates too. I didn't even talk about the pirates. There was
Endless.
so much happened. And so that is, I see, you know, Horatio as being kind of the narrator that outlives the story, that continues to tell it so that it lives on.
Oh, that is such a lovely answer. And I don't know that I've ever heard the comparison of Horatio to kind of mirroring the audience,
Mhm.
which I think is a beautiful medium in storytelling, to find a way to connect with the audience in that way and give us that perspective. And that's, I really thank you for opening my mind to that. I love thinking about that. Um, you brought up superstition,
I
which was
did.
so great because now I get to ask this kind of very silly question. I looked at my partner and I was like, am I silly for asking this? And they were like, nah, do it.
Yeah, ask it.
So we've got Horatio shown proof that there's an afterlife, there's ghosts. It's
Hmm. After, I would like to point out, thoroughly
mhm.
declaring like y'all need more sleep. Like this is
Yes.
dumb. It's the mist. Like okay, let's see this ghost. And it's like, oh shit, there's a
Oh,
ghost.
oh my gosh. Am
Like,
I tired? Am
Horatio's
I?
like, this is not how I expected tonight to go, you guys.
It's not was not on the bucket list,
Not
not
on
on the
my list, not
checklist.
on the agenda.
So for yourself, for LC,
Yes.
do you believe in the superstition? Do you believe in ghosts?
Okay, so interesting. So I come from a long line of performers and baseball players, and
What a
you
combo.
cannot find a more superstitious group than baseball players or fans and theater people. Like, like from like these are my lucky leg warmers that I wear every
Mm-hmm.
single thing. Like these earrings I wear in every single performance. And it's like, right, but they're diamonds and this show set in the Depression. Like you can't wear those. Like there's a lot of, superstition and things like that. So there's that whole layer. I believe in that the energy that's left behind of when you occupy a space
Yeah.
that is old, like libraries and
Mm.
theaters, spaces that have just held so many people. Um, if you had asked me 20 years ago if I believed in ghosts, first of all, I would have been a baby. But I also would have been like, no. Now I would say there is so much. I mean, Hamlet says it best about there's more in this world than your philosophy can hold. Like, I now
Yeah.
understand that you know what? Sure. Like, there
Why
were,
not?
there's aliens apparently. Like, it's 2024. My answer is probably like, so, like, I haven't seen a ghost or anything like that. Um,
Hmm.
but I definitely have felt presence. I know I do believe in all of that, like, memory and energy
Yeah.
and when and I mean, here's a weird tie back into the end of the show, but with Horatio
Hmm.
again being like, kind of obviously everybody's dead. And yet here we are, however many hundreds of years later, still performing these characters, right?
Yeah.
So because the story lives on, right? So the story is the memory, is a living ghost, is
Yeah.
but I love hearing people's stories about ghosts and encounters, and I 100% believe them when I hear them. I heard a brilliant one in at the Woodland Opera House in
Ooh,
Woodland, and like just these great, and I'm just like, yes, tell me more. Like,
100%. I want to know it all.
so, and I do have that, backseat cynic sitting there in the back of my brain being like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
but I'm also like, yeah, but you know what? Probably.
Who
Why not?
knows?
Why not? It's 2024. Anything is possible.
Anything and everything is possible at this point. I know growing up in high school for me, we had our theater ghost,
Hmm.
Of course, I'm going to forget what we named him, but we had given him a name and everything.
Hmm.
Uh, it's definitely very instilled in the
Oh yeah,
theater
it's steeped in
side of
that
stuff.
culture. We had one in the theater that I used to work at in San Luis Obispo, which was amazing because that it used to be the library, and then it was turned into the theater.
Oh,
And people
wow.
would swear, that they would see her, that it was a little girl. Um, and and then costumes would be moved around and this and that. And
Yeah.
but I never saw her.
We always left an empty seat in the audience for
Mm,
our ghost. It was always a thing that my theater teacher was like, you have to make sure you leave him a seat.
yeah.
Uh, and it was a little bit of that like superstition, something bad might happen if you're able to sit and watch the
Don't piss off the
play.
ghost. Don't turn this into Phantom of the Opera, right?
Not having it, not having it. Oh goodness. Thank you for playing into that question with me. I was
Oh,
like,
absolutely. I feel like I
can't
should have a
help
cup of
it.
tea to talk about ghosts. It's hot.
I know, right? Of course, the summer heat has just moved into
Which
California.
feels appropriate though, because it was hot when we filmed. Remember?
It
It was
was.
hot, and I made some interesting costume choices before realizing it was going to be that hot.
Yeah, I think a few of us did. I think a few of us
There
did.
were yeah. It was like, and now we're in a tank top and a scarf because it's hot.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm in a closet and there's no airflow.
Right, there's no airflow. I can open the door, but then you're gonna hear everything happening in the neighborhood. So,
Oh, all right. So transitioning out of that a little bit, still in the
okay.
conversation of theater and acting, performances, Shakespeare especially. I don't know. Have you ever done any directing before? Has that ever been something you've wanted to tackle or have tackled?
Yeah, so I've done some directing, not recently, but I live in Napa now and I've done some of the like 10-minute plays. So it's a smaller
Oh,
cast, it's a
good.
shorter so you can do a few rehearsals and then put it up and it's fun. So I've done a couple of those. I've choreographed before and but yeah, I've directed but in like after college and stuff, but not much, not recently. And it's a big job. I don't think
Yes.
I certainly, when I was younger, didn't understand really how much work the director puts into its casting. I mean, 80% of it is casting, but casting is a big, heavy lift and finding the people and getting the call out and making those decisions. I hate, as much as I hate auditioning, and I hate auditioning, I really hate being on the other side of the table too, because there is so much talent in the world. And there's so, I tell my child this all the time, like there's so many ways to make soup. Like there's not like one way to do it. There's not one way to
Yeah.
cast a show. Like there are multiple, like so many different ways that a role could be interpreted, that a person can be represented, and different
Hmm.
things that that says or doesn't say. And so casting is, and and who's available. But so that's a really
Scheduling.
big, I mean, it's such, there's just the logistics of it. It can be a
Yeah.
nightmare. And as someone who has kind of limited bandwidth, it's something I would be very happy to like assistant direct.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future, like I'd love to direct again, but right now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, no, I get cranky realizing that I have to figure out what's for dinner every night. I have to figure out what scenes we're running tonight too.
Again, so relatable. We're supposed to remember to feed ourselves every single night and have a
Every
different
night,
meal every
could we
time.
just do this like yesterday?
So, if you had, let's say, all the circumstances laid out, we had the free time, you
Mm.
had the money, the production, you got a cast, all of those things lined up perfectly, which is
Um,
asking a lot of the universe.
we're living in our minds right now. We're just gonna say it
But
happens.
all those planets have aligned and it is golden. What Shakespeare play would you want to direct? We
Oh,
talked about Macbeth and wanting to perform that,
which
but
would be
what would
phenomenal.
you?
I would love to direct Macbeth, but one of my deep, deep heart projects.
I love it.
Okay,
Lay it
I
on
can't believe.
us.
Okay, I'm gonna say this out loud. I'm putting it out there. Why not? I said I wanted to play Macbeth earlier. We are done playing Humble. I have always wanted to combine ballet and Shakespeare and do Romeo and
Oh,
Juliet with the Tchaikovsky, the score,
yeah.
and do it as a physical performance using the language. So it's not just the dance to the music. You are hearing the lines, you are hearing the language, which is just as much of a
Yeah.
dance as so I would love, love, love to do that. That's in my heart of hearts is to do, yeah, do Romeo and Juliet, the ballet Shakespeare.
Ballet.
Or like not ballet. I like it doesn't need to be, ballet,
Yeah.
but like the dance like if I don't know,
The
the
dance
physical theater.
interpretation,
Yeah, like um
uh, that is such a, that's a really, I think, beautiful like idea and goal down the line. Because as, I mean, ballet and like having been a ballerina, that is an incredibly extraneous, I'd say, position to be in as a dancer. I don't know that I could ever do ballet. I don't think my feetsies could handle
Well, I don't think,
it.
yeah, my joints are not hearing that. Physical theater, like
Yes, exactly.
contemporary dance. Does that feel more accessible?
That's for
Contemporary
me,
dance?
for my
Yeah,
joints, a
yeah,
little more accessible.
yeah. Shakespeare,
uh,
lyrical ballet. I don't know. Romeo and Juliet. But I also feel like Romeo and Juliet's also been done to death. No pun intended. But I would just love to see because like there is something there is something in dance and music that
mhm,
is so expressive. And I think one of the things that happens a lot with Shakespeare, especially with Romeo and Juliet, and sometimes with Hamlet, and I'm really hoping, and I think we managed to avoid this, is you don't want to play Act 5 and Act 1, right?
oof,
Like in Hamlet,
oof.
right? Act 5, everybody dies.
We
Right?
can't have
But you
it.
can't start, you can't start Circle of Life with like a scar. Like you start with figuring out who everybody is. Like
Yeah,
you ride the wave, not you only go over the waterfall once. And one of the things that can happen a lot with Romeo and Juliet is people play it as this tragedy when really it's a silly love story almost up
yeah.
until like what act four? Like,
Oh.
like but so a lot of that breadth of emotion, right? That
Yeah.
huge range of like silly love, right? That you see with what's his bucket in the beginning. And one could argue, a juvenile, like what, these star-crossed lovers, but like anyhow, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Um, but that there is this huge change from this very light, sweet, he's with her, now he's with her, like, oh, they're in love, oh, they're not
Hmm.
supposed to be in love, like very, familiar story, very sweet, to this like, oh wait, holy shit.
Yeah.
Um, and when I think of where I've seen an expression of that variety, of that range from like, birth to death, from is think of
Yeah.
like Swan Lake. I think of things that can really be held and expressed through the body. But now I've gone way off the rails. But I think there can be a huge, wonderful boost of like when that like physical expression meets, the wonderful verbal gymnastics that is
Yeah.
Shakespeare. And I think that's something that people tend to forget is that it's fun. It's not like because the language can feel so cumbersome, right? It can get really easy to get weighed down by that language, but it's like ping pong. Like it goes and
Yeah.
it goes and it goes and it's back and forth and it's quick and it's hard and it's fun. It's like baseball in your,
Absolutely.
in your mouth.
Uh,
Again with the phrasing. I am so sorry.
what are we gonna do? I'm here for
Oh
it.
man. Oh man.
So we're gonna tie this out with a question that we received in our little submission form, and it is from, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your username correctly, Kilaki underscore Redbeard. Now they had a question for everyone, to everyone. What did you find that surprised you about the what did you find that surprised you about the amazing performances of the other cast members?
Oh, great question.
I know, right, Kilaki? Thank you.
Well,
And now this doesn't mean picking favorites or anything of the
right,
sort.
right.
No,
No,
no
no, no,
stress
no,
there.
no stress there. I just mean it was so there was so much, there were a few. I'm gonna kind of jump around and build a web here. So the way that people had that dexterity with that language,
Hmm.
um, that we're just talking, it's so easy to get weighed down by just the blah, blah, blah of the
Hmm.
language. And like the agility with which people really came in and just tackled the language and commanded it and had fun with it was really something. Watching watching people come into this whole other world, knowing like they're in their kitchen with like a sheet behind them,
Yep.
right? And like, but they're totally shifting this whole perspective in a way that, when you are rehearsing in a traditional space or performing in a traditional space, you get a lot of help from the
Yeah.
environment around you. And here we didn't have that. So watching the ways that people would really create the tension or the formality or the fear or the like buddiness or the spookiness, and like we're all just
Yeah.
sitting in these little boxes, and I think one of the like Hamlet Olympics moments that pops out in my head was
Yeah.
watching Jen in the middle of like some pretty thick soliloquy be like, hold sirens, because she's just like in her apartment, right? So there's like
Yep.
ambulance driving by, and she just holds, takes a breath, and just launches right
Right
back
back in it.
into it. I'm like, you didn't even take a sip of water.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, okay. Um, and also I was really impressed too with like the physicality without having physical
Space.
contact or space.
Yeah.
Especially in the gravedigger scene, like they kept the energy it was just going, even without being able to like juggle skulls. It was a verbal juggling of skulls.
Yeah.
And like, oh, but like when Katie as Gertrude would, there's just that punch in the stuff. Oh, yeah,
Oof.
that hmm, that was really powerful.
Yeah.
And the way that that Kate would go would get her Polonius, and I loved how much sense everything made when she said it.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
oh, that's like, and just the joy of the way that Polonius takes so much joy in the lane, really chewing through the language, and
Mm-hmm.
how Kate did that. Like it was just there were so many things, and I could go on and on and on, but I know we only have so much time. But yeah.
Well, I think those are all remarkable points, and I second every single one of them. Thank you so much for your time today, Elsie.
Oh, it's so good
Uh,
to see you again, Kat.
I know, it was so lovely. Is there anything you'd like to tie off here at the end for yourself as a outro introduction or promotion of
Um,
anything you might have going on?
no, drink your water. And if you want, you can check out my messy blog at prettygoodugly.com.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Elsie. My name is Kat, your lovely Guildenstern interviewer. And thank you, everybody. We'll catch you for the next one.
There we go.